Let me tell you why I'm turning my spare bedroom into an Airbnb. Let's go. I got a lot of work to do here. So like your stereotypical millennial, I'm trying to find a way to hack the system, right? I'm wanting to pay less for my monthly bills, especially as a millennial entrepreneur. But the question is, how do I do this? Well, over the last several months, I've been trying to find ways to make it happen, right? I refinanced my house, which lowered my monthly payment. I updated my plan with Verizon Wireless, which actually ended up me paying less every month. And Verizon now pays for my Hulu TV, my Apple Music, all that stuff, right? I've been trying to find ways to do this. And utilizing my asset, right, my home, it was kind of the next big thing to do. But the question is, which direction do I go? Do I go short-term rental? Do I go long-term rental? So I had to really sit down, think, figure out, for me personally, my life, my lifestyle, the things that are beneficial for me, both short-term and long-term, which direction might be best. And today, I'm going to go over that thought process. So, Mama taught me, always make a checklist of your pros and cons when you're in a split decision, unsure of which way to go. So some of the pros of a long-term rental is you do have consistent income. For the most part, so long as they pay every month, you don't have to worry about having to pay the mortgage or pay this, pay that, because it's already in there in that contract. Something else cool about a long-term rental is you can develop a good relationship with that other person. Maybe you guys are really familiar, maybe you guys can become best friends, or maybe even get married. I don't know, I don't care, but there is a possibility of developing a relationship and it being very fruitful. So I do think that's a positive. Another positive, if done appropriately, can split house chores. I don't know about you, but I hate doing the laundry and I hate doing the dishes. I would do about pretty much anything else but those two things. So if they could do that for me, it would make my life so much easier and less stressful. So trusting somebody that can consistently do that with you, well, that's a pretty big benefit. Now, a couple of negatives about long-term rentals versus short-term rentals, in my opinion, are A, there's a lot of regulation about it. Each state and even county or city varies a lot, but long-term rentals are typically very heavily regulated, which kind of goes into the second problem, and that's it's hard to kick somebody out if you don't like them. They've signed a contract, and so long as they're not violating that contract, typically speaking, you have to let them go through that 12-month lease. So if you guys aren't vibing, they just aren't clicking with you, or maybe they do some stuff that annoys you, you're going to have to deal with it until that contract's up. And for me personally, I don't like that. One of the big downsides for a long-term rental is there is a cap on the max amount of money you can make off it. Sure, it's nice to have that consistency every month of, I know this bill is going to get paid for, but for me personally, being a millennial entrepreneur, I want to maximize that as much as possible, and knowing I can't do that kind of sucks. So that's some of the pros and cons of a long-term rental, but what about of a short-term rental like Airbnb? Well, let's go over those. Number one, it's short term. So for me, if I don't want to do it anymore, if I don't feel like having somebody in my space for the next day, week, month, guess what? I get to choose that because I own the property and it's a short-term rental. I enjoy that. It gives me a little bit more of control over my privacy and my life. So another huge benefit of a short-term rental is you can maximize your profit at the end of the day. And for me, I love that as a millennial entrepreneur, right? I want to be able to take my investment, my house, and squeeze as much out of it as possible. And if I can do that with a short-term rental versus a long-term, it only makes sense to me at the end of the day. So another huge perk of these short-term rentals is actually these host sites like Airbnb. They do the majority of the work for you. You get to just take the pictures, put information about your house and say, hey, it's available. And then everything else is done through. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to go get legal documentation. I don't have to sort through a bunch of things. I just say, hey, am I okay with this person renting my house for the next 1, 2, 5, 10 days? Yeah, click, and I'm done. That's all. It makes my life simpler. It puts less obligations on me, and I can kind of just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Now, short-term rentals do have their negatives, and one of those might be you could get some crazy people coming through. I have seen horror stories on Facebook, on YouTube, and even from some friends that have said, hey, we've had some sketchy people come through. However, I have learned, after talking to quite a bit of people who do short-term rentals, this is extremely rare. Most people are respectful, and almost more overly respectful than a long-term rental or even being at their own house, because they understand, hey, I don't own this property, especially when you live in that property. I'm just renting out my bedroom, not my whole house. So they know, hey, there's a good chance I'm going to be in there, so they're not going to do anything crazy, they're not going to do anything off the cuff. And for me, that almost provides me more security than having that long-term rental, because that long-term rental, he could just sit there, or she could just sit there and be like, hey, I'm used to you now. I don't care if we're going to leave old food out on the counter for the next 2 days. I don't want that. But that short-term rental, because of that stress obligation, they won't do that. Hopefully not, at least. Now, with that comes, I think, an additional negative is you do have new people coming through all the time, right? You don't get to develop that deep-seated long-term relationship with somebody, which kind of sucks at the end of the day, but you, I guess, do have the ability to have a long-term relationship. If you guys do vibe, you can always connect on Instagram and social media and all that stuff, so maybe that's not really a downside, maybe that is a positive. It gives you more opportunities. I don't know. So for me, those are the pros and cons of long-term versus short-term and which direction to go. For me personally, in my life, in my lifestyle, and what I'm attempting to do, having a short-term rental makes a lot more sense for me because I'm looking to go and actually start purchasing more of the short-term rentals to do Airbnbs. And this gives me the ability to try it out, right? In my house, for me to feel comfortable, get used to the systems, understand what works and what doesn't work will make me much more successful and a much better Airbnb host because I had that ability and experience. Instead of just jumping into it, buying an investment property, going, YOLO, here we are, let's see what we can make happen. I can do it baby step by baby step. Because a lot of people, I think, try to run before they walk. And for me, at least, again, I find that as a huge benefit. So that's me, pros and cons. This is why I'm doing the short-term rental versus the long. I want to know, you guys got questions? Do you agree or disagree with what I have? Put in the comments below. I'd love to hear it and love to get a chance to chit-chat with y'all. Hope y'all keep on kicking ass and taking names.